Yeah, there's been a few things happening in my close realm of people getting, terminally ill and stuff.
Yeah.
And so I'm having to deal with grief.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
how would you deal with that? Because how do you stay quiet for 20 questions questioning about my grief without
All right, let's see how I go.
Okay.
Firstly, what's your understanding of grief?
I feel like once we die, there's going to be a place that's loving, that's going to accept us, and we're going to be in a nice space. So my view of the afterlife is very positive. I'm not afraid of the afterlife. I welcome it. So that is my belief about what happens if that person goes and passes, right?
Yeah.
They'll always be loved. No worries. But then I grieve because I feel guilty and I feel like I didn't spend more time with this person. And the other thing that I felt was I should feel sad that this person is dying. I should feel sad.
So
how can I be happy?
So what emotions do you feel if you're not feeling sad?
Happy. I mean, if I didn't know about the news, I would be happy. But now I feel like I have to be sad. And I spoke to this person and I said, I almost feel selfish that do I need to stop on my dreams of being a YouTuber, having those aspirations? Should I just sit here and be sad for you and for our circumstance, And this person said, no, Azlan, you just do what you need to do, and, your path, this is your path, you follow your path. And then I sat with that feeling and I felt, I told my wife, I still feel like I need to grieve. I don't know why. It feels a sense of sadness. And it's killing my mojo.
So are you trying to force an emotional state upon yourself out of obligation?
I think so. I think so. Out of society's how can Azlan be happy if somebody around him is terminally ill? How is that fair to that person? That's my assumption.
So if you appropriately feeling what you should, does that mean whenever someone is going through a very bad, potential fatal situation, does that mean everyone they know should hold space of sadness and get away from their everyday passions?
I see what you're doing here. That was a very good question.
It was a question.
That's a very good question.
Sticking to the rules.
That's 5 now.
Is it 5 questions? Yeah. Have I asked 5 questions?
You've asked for 5 questions.
Wow,
I'm counting on my fingers.
Okay.
So I see what you're doing now. The answer to that question, that's a very good question, is no. It's no. I mean,
why not?
Well, that one person...
That's 7 questions.
7, yeah. It's not fair. It's not fair for you to expect everyone around you to be sad and to hold off on their dreams, because death is a good thing anyway. And people have to move on with their lives. And why would you... I would want that for people if they found out I had cancer, to go on and to do what you need to. In fact, if anything, it should motivate you more to do what you want to do with your life, because time in this physical realm is perceived as limited. I get that. So if anything, it should be the opposite effect. You should go out and do whatever you want to do, because time is limited in this physical body. Go ahead. I don't want you to be sad.
If someone feels sad, do you then get confused?
If I had cancer?
Or someone they knew had cancer. Do you get confused by their emotion?
No.
Why not?
Well, because there's a perceived sense of loss. And again, I'll come back to my view of the afterlife. I know there's no real loss, but there's a perceived sense of this person is going to die soon, and therefore there's going to be loss. So therefore, I feel sad. Okay, good. You can feel sad. Go ahead.
Are you framing loss is whether someone gets extinguished into non-existence versus existing elsewhere out of your reach? So when someone dies, are you saying that there is no loss?
Physical loss, yes, for sure. Presence, definitely there. I mean,
Just physical?
emotional, spiritual. There will be that moment of, oh, this person is gone. And even the greatest teachers feel that sense of loss because it's real. It's what you see, hear,
And how
smell,
does
and
it
touch.
make them feel when they feel that type of loss?
Grief, sadness, depression.
Why?
I don't know. Physically, that person's gone. I mean, what else is there? I mean, there's no other way of saying it. There is a...
Why do they feel the loss?
This is a hard one. I don't know, because that person's, I mean, physically it's not, because they feel like they've lost a part of them, or they've lost the person that they used to do things with, their experience.
So they do things with.
Yeah.
Did they value the things they did with that person?
Right. Sure.
Did they value the way that person was in their life?
Yeah, for sure. Because if not, then why would they grieve if another stranger just died?
So some people are closer to some people and receive a lot more value from the person that passes away.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, that's a given. I receive more value from, anyone, my wife or anyone, than a stranger on the street crossing the road, for sure. Yeah. Last one.
So therefore, it depends on how much receiving of value that person was for you in your life.
Ooh, nice one. Yes.
That you would therefore grieve the most. Is that how it works?
Yeah. But the value doesn't die though. My value with this person doesn't die because it's not a day-to-day transaction. It is more of a, this is where I aspire to be. This person is where I aspire to be. The value will always be there regardless of if he's alive or not,
But that value of conceptual is one layer. Are there other layers of value like affection, discussion, acts of generosity, acts of surprise, humor? Are there multiple layers?
There are multiple layers.
That then get switched off?
Yeah.
There is. And then therefore, what is grieving?
When everything turns off, all the value, the sustainable value exchange breaks.
And is the sustainable value exchange a big deal?
Yeah, for sure.
And it broke?
It broke.
That's a big deal. And therefore, if people feel it, how deeply do they feel something so important?
All right, you've done it. You're 20 questions, 25 now.
Yeah. All right, so let's debrief that. Right, let's debrief. At what point of the question count did we start to get you and me into a place of understanding why you had a complicated relationship with grief?
I think 11, when you asked me about...
Okay. So at the 11 mark, we started to open up stuff, yeah? But I was committed, the marathon. I didn't know whether it was going to happen at 11 or 20.
I see what you're saying.
Do you know what I mean? And also, I was genuinely interested. I really was interested in sniffing your perception. It was I care about you. I want to know. Because, you see, you do care. Which is why you would ride guilt for not being someone that has the optics that you're a good person, because you know you're a good person. But you don't look good when you can't force yourself to feel sad. Do you know what I mean? But the point here is maybe not everyone dying is the appropriate emotion, sadness for you. Because there was no sustainable value exchange that was material in your everyday life with them. But it was for others. So therefore, you could just dial into that and hold space for those people because you care about their pain. You know what I mean?
I see what you're saying.
And then maybe you could even be sad for their sadness. You know how, like, when someone passes away and you feel down, you can't say it's sadness, but you just feel cautiously just still and solemn kind of thing. Then the person, their partner, starts to talk and get emotional about losing them. But you're close to that person, and suddenly you start to get emotional. And you start, because it was them and what they're going through that affected you. You see what's interesting about that? Like, we're captured by the people we care about. And if someone's not in our life as much as we want the best for them, it's very hard to fake them going is going to be of any material impact to your everyday life for the rest of your life. It's very hard to fake that. And a lot of people feel obliged to fake it. I mean, what percentage of people go to a funeral and are actually acting sadder than what they really feel?
That's a good point.
I would say, unfortunately, a lot, and not because they are dishonest and they want to, it's because they just don't want anyone to think that they're not a good person. But they just can't force themselves to feel burdened by the loss of that person. But at the same time, they'll tune into the people they care about who were closer to that person and feel the grief and the sadness, and then that helps them participate in the support in an authentic way.
Right. Unless the person who's organizing the funeral changes the theme of the funeral from loss to a celebration of that person's life. I've seen funerals I've been to where it's a celebration.
Yes, and I think
and people are laughing and it's great. I was at the party. I'm like, how is this possible?
Yeah, but they first validated the loss.
Yes.
So, they go through
the
that coffin is a powerful friggin' in your face, symbol of the ending of someone's life, and you'll never interact with them ever again. Maybe AI, but anyway, but you won't. You just won't, right? And therefore, by the way, I know that people have afterlife medium and they can kind of tune into, but it's just not the same.
Yeah.
It's just small. It's glimpsy. It's not really the depth
material
of that person right there engaging you with a full stream.
Playing Mario Kart.
Of value exchange, exactly. So, in my culture, we've got wailing. Like, women will wail and it goes through my spine, Azlan. Like, it just put it. The small little hairs off my back will just stand up. You can just feel your goosebumps. And you feel, oh my gosh, that wailing just hits home the depth of loss some people are feeling, because that person was almost everything to them in the way they're experiencing that loss, And so, but where's the counterbalance? Because like when we first started this conversation, you said, but they're not dead. They just dropped the body. They're on the other side. Let's just get on with life, but celebrate them. They're not dead. I think there's a lot of wisdom in that. And a lot of people don't have that access that you have to that amazing insight, But I reckon both are important in balance. Validate the genuine loss for either yourself and those you care about with that person. Then genuinely celebrate what memories that person created with people in the room and what legacy they left behind in their contribution, and celebrate life and celebrate their life, knowing that we are here We're here with a bat of an eyelid, we are gone, in relative terms.
Is that how you coped with grief, with death?
Of
I
not-
like that idea.
Of what? Of not knowing people died.
No, as in, is that your process to I like that process because I've never really thought about. So you said about how, you validate your emotion that there is a physical loss there.
Yes,
You
yes.
feel sad, and then you immediately go think about what can I celebrate from this person? How can I, what
Yeah.
are the things that we can celebrate?
Yeah, because I remember when my grandfather passed away, I was about 15 years old.
Right.
Right? And I lived with him and my grandmother for 5 days a week and weekends with my folks because they were immigrant, 12-hour day factory workers trying to build a life,
Yeah.
right, in the 80s. And my grandparents would take us to primary school for the first 15 times, when I was in third class where we moved to, and my brother was first class, and they would walk us to school. It was like a good, I think, 15-minute walk to get to school, and they would walk us to school. And then my grandfather would come and walk us back. Like there was such love, And I remember with lung cancer, I was massaging my grandfather's feet, and to be honest with you, I didn't enjoy it because I'm a kid. I don't want it, But I loved him so much that my obligation, my duty was so strong that made me proud that I could be there for him in ways that it mattered for him as he deteriorated in the last 12 months, right? Now, when he died, I cried, and I didn't cry since that time for a long time after that, but I cried then. And then I remember within a day with his children, my aunties, uncles and all that, and we're getting together and there's crying. Suddenly we'd be talking about life with him and his nuances and his impatience. Like he'll eat food while it's still cooking on the pot because he just couldn't wait to eat. It's like, how does he do that? He doesn't care if it's half raw. He's eating, He was up at 5 a.m, every morning within the garden, big veggie garden, right? So anyway, and they were laughing.
Right.
His own children were laughing within 36 hours of his death. Laughing hysterically at certain stories. And I remember having mixed feelings. I remember going, oh my gosh, I get the laughter and I feel the funniness and the joy. This is real and I need to have it with them and I'm having it. But at the same time, I feel it's wrong. It's like, why are we laughing? We should only be sad. And I remember, back then and since then, with many deaths, there's been a lot of, I've seen both. I've seen the laughter and the wailing and the sadness. And it's all in the balance of deep loss and the joy of having a lifetime with that person. A part of a lifetime.
That is so insightful for me because all the people that I've seen in the Asian cultures, they always talk about the bad when the person dies, even till today.
Yeah.
There's guilt. I didn't spend enough time with this person. We put this person in old folks' home. They deteriorated after that. It was our fault. We should have brought him home. But there was never he did this really, really well. I've never heard of those funny stories. And it's
very skewed towards guilt.
Yes. And so when I hear about death, immediately I feel, oh no, I have to live this life of guilt for the next 30 years of me not being a good person to this person. And it's never been about the celebration. The celebration happened at the funeral, but everybody else who's been to that funeral was like, oh man, we shouldn't have done this, we shouldn't have done that, we should have done. It's a lot of guilt. And then as they talk about their guilt, they cry, and I'm going, I don't want this. I don't want to remember. If I don't want to go through death this way. I acknowledge the sadness, but I don't want to go through the next 20 years feeling guilt.
That's a lot of guilt.
It's a lot of guilt.
That's a lot of. If Rio Tinto and FMG and BH mine that much guilt over 20 years, gosh, no one would want to Buy it from them. They have to put it back in the ground. Someone told us guilt was a trend, and we just mined it, and no one wanted it. Now, you know what? Guilt is a legitimate emotion. Unprocessed, it can last for decades. Processed, it can pass through you and finish its job in a graceful minute, in a graceful day, in a graceful week, depending on the circumstance.
I think that's the idea. How do you process guilt is one thing that I'm going to learn now, because I feel guilty for this other person in my life as well. It's like, could I have done this? Could I have done that? What if I did this? What if I made this decision?
Well, you know, when you're sniffing your own perception, what comes with that is your emotional states and how much of those emotions are suppressed, right? It's bringing our conversation full circle to when I told you this guy was on edge. It's like just a habit of ignoring your emotions. And it's like, do you ever feel anything for shits and giggles? Or do you feel something because your brain released those chemicals in your body because it thought it was appropriate? Exactly, right? The answer is you don't feel anything for nothing, okay? But if you keep feeling it over and over and over, eventually you're going to have to cope with the fact that it's distracting, it's not sustainable. And so what are you going to do? You're going to numb yourself. You're going to ignore it. You're going to you're going to use denial as coping. You're going to learn to suppress it, put it in a box, and move on.
Thank you for telling me this, because I made a conscious decision not to drink alcohol during this period, because I want to sit with it. I just want to sit with this emotion and figure out. I think validating it is one thing. Saying it's okay to feel sad. I have the right to feel sad. It's fine. But then I forgot about the celebration bit of it.
Yeah, and because you forgot about the celebration, you thought you had to make sadness your home.
Correct.
And you were rebelling against that.
Yes.
So then sadness got a bad rap, guilt got a bad rap,
Yeah.
celebration was off the table.
Off the table.
It sounds like a clusterfuck to me.
Complete clusterfuck in my brain.
Okay, so suppressing emotion is nonsense. It has a purpose if you just need to cope in a situation and you don't have time to feel things too much because you've got to get through like a crisis. Suppress those emotions, absolutely. But ongoing habit of suppressing emotions is stupid. And so, for example, sadness has a place. Honor it. Guilt has a place. Could you have spent more time with that person? Do you genuinely have the emotion of regret because you were captured by life's distractions so much that you just didn't know that person had only 1 month left to go, and you would have loved just some quality closure with talking about their life and doing just some more few nice things? Do you genuinely value that and you feel like you've missed it, so you're going to process some guilt and regret there? Fine, do it. But then move through it. You see, if you move through it, the emotions aren't a problem anymore. You know, that's why I always talk about how kids, they'll chuck a tantrum, they're crying, they want something, and then, you know, they got tears coming down their face, and then suddenly they get distracted by something funny, and now they're laughing, but they've still got the tears on their face, and they're completely shifted into another emotional state.
Yes.
Children haven't learned emotional suppression. You see?
Yeah.
So they glide through the emotional states with ease, and they move on, and they move on. And then eventually, when society conditions them to shut up, what you feel is not important, you know, hide it, it's shameful. Be a man, hide it, suck it up, suppress it. Basically, we're taught to disconnect from our own emotions. Now, having said that, if we processed our emotions with our evolved, mature reasoning, we would do it in our own time. We wouldn't make people suffer every emotional state we're feeling. We would allow ourselves to feel it in our bodies, and we would process it with
Yeah.
grace, and it would be timely, and we'd move through to the other side in a minute, in a day if it's a big deal, in a week if it's a very big deal. Do you know what I mean? And all of those processes are just a part of being human. But being human, man, we're just not good at emotional management.
I'm struggling, but I mean, there are other people who are struggling worse. But you're right. It is a tricky path.
You say you're struggling, but